are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
This is Dennis Prager, and I am in When's World, and I love it.
As we know, the marijuana industry in America is booming. Currently, 8 states where recreational and medicinal use is welcome, and a host of other states where it's strictly medicinal. And some say that the industry could be bigger than the National Football League in just 3 years' time. And I have CEO of Americanics, Steve Janjic, on the line. Steve, how are you today?
Great, and thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here.
As you know, a lot of states have legalized, which has created grow houses, dispensaries, and a huge business model. I know in the state of California, there was over $1 billion of revenue last year alone because of this industry. And your company is somewhat of the marketplace, an eBay or an Amazon, if you will, for the cannabis industry. Go into a little bit about what your company does and your role in that.
Sure, and again, thank you. So what we've built is an electronic e-commerce website, similar to how everybody shops nowadays, is to log on to a website, buy the products that they need, and pay via some payment system like a Ace Pay or a Apple Pay or a PayPal.
Right.
So what we've built is a place where dispensaries or stores could log on to one individual website and buy all of the products they need to fill their shelves. And we do this in an electronic fashion with the full capabilities of tracking and tracing exactly where the product started and where the product ends up, thus giving the entire industry that comfort of public health and safety, trackability, transparency into a marketplace so everybody knows that the products that they're buying have been tested and they're buying from legal vendors.
Right. So I guess you could say that the cannabis business is finally getting its house in order, so becoming more legit by the month.
It really is. And as we've seen, many states, there's now over 29 states that are medicinally legal. And as you're noticing more and more legislation in many states, and look at the country, look at Canada. Right. Which is now going recreational legal across the entire country, where it's also the largest unmanned border to the United States. So I think that we're finding that many states are going to embark on medicinal and recreational cannabis because they do know one thing: the product is going to come to the state. This is a way to help eliminate the black market, help create revenue for the state, jobs for the state. There are well over 300,000 new jobs. And when I say new jobs, these are jobs that never existed before. So they're not displaced jobs, but brand new jobs that came into the economy last year, all due to medicinal and recreational cannabis. And frankly, that's what the platform is for the current administration, to create jobs, create wealth. And you're finding that in the medicinal as well as the recreational states, this is happening on a daily basis. And what I think is most important, as you and I have seen, that there has been the current administration has discussed the fact that there is some uncomfort level from the Attorney General, but you have statistics that are on our side and that are on the side of the public. Over 71% of the American citizens are comfortable with both medicinal and recreational cannabis, which is a huge, huge number. And frankly, one that I would find that our current administration would ignore. And what we saw as of late, most recently 2 weeks ago with the spending bill, they actually put in the bill that they were not going to fund Sessions to be able to actually go after medicinal marijuana states, and actually made it very clear that he was to leave those states and the entire infrastructure alone, which is exactly what we thought we'd see. And we're very excited to see that the current administration also is looking at the statistics and the real numbers to say there may be a huge opportunity here to take this product, make it legal, track it properly, bring it out of prohibition, right, and make these individual business owners good corporate citizens.
What role do you think Wall Street could have in providing balance and stability to the marijuana market?
Well, Well, one thing that we find and that every other industry has is a way to protect itself. And unfortunately for the cannabis industry, these business owners don't have that opportunity. And let me explain what I mean by that. When you go and you grow a crop in corn or in wheat, you have both insurance and you have financial markets to help protect yourself and protect the price of the commodity. In the cannabis market, they don't have these protections. So when there's crop failure or there is a pesticide issue with the crop or the government regulators come up with something that doesn't work for the industry or changes the industry, well, these farmers lose hundreds, if not millions of dollars because there isn't an insurance policy. There isn't a financial market to stabilize pricing and to help them get the best price for their commodity.
Right.
So we truly need Wall Street. We need them for their products. We need them to help the farmers have the ability to have insurance to protect their crops, have the ability to use financial instruments and financial markets to help make sure that they consistently get the best price and can protect themselves in and against crop failure. This is what we see Wall Street for. We also know that Wall Street, over the past 10 years, has been highly regulated and has put in very specific processes to help protect public health and safety.
Right.
And frankly, a lot of these processes have been taken into other industries as well as what we're bringing to cannabis. We do believe as a company that we have to digitize the money. If you think about all of this cash in the cannabis industry that's changing hands,
right,
and it's all being done in such large volumes of cash in a federally illicit product, and the entire industry is laundering money. It defies what we did as a country years ago with the Patriot Act, with the inability to use cash in many instances, especially when you go into a bank and try to deposit cash, and the unwant of the banks to work with cash because there is that inability to track. What we did is we provide regulatory agencies, industry participants with that full supply chain where we could track that full supply chain. We could track it through transportation. We could track it through laboratory results. And now we have built Ace Pay where we can provide a digital solution with a bank account for industry participants to become good corporate citizens, pay their taxes properly, not in cash,
right,
pay their employees, give them benefits, use proper payroll service so that now we turn all of these individuals into good corporate citizens. And frankly, we want that money in the economy. We don't want millions and millions of dollars in cash sitting on pallets in people's warehouses or in their homes.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine, not is it not only a poor driving force for the economy, but the amount of robbery, the amount of theft. We are putting people at harm because we won't bank their monies.
Because it's such a backstreet drug still, how dealings are done, in dark places, and people's safety is put on the line because they can't, in many states, just go to a dispensary, show ID, prove they're 21 or older, and buy legally. And we should be at this place in society where we're open and honest about what we do. It seems like every other societal stigma has been addressed except for this one in many states.
Well, what we have to have is proper regulation. And one thing that you mentioned was public health and safety. What we have found with working with many states is they truly don't understand what it takes for proper health and safety. And the reason I say that is because in some states, you have specific divisions, organizations that have been set up just for marijuana and its enforcement. And in other states, it's the public health department. Now, the public health department just wants to know that the person with the ID, with the license, is the purchaser. But there is so much that goes into this that's way above and beyond. We need, and this is one thing we built, we give an infrastructure so that public health and safety department, so that law enforcement and every other agency has the ability to log into one online system and help drive their force. In the fact that you could imagine if a police officer pulled over a truck that had cannabis and cash in it without being able to see the manifest, knowing whether that's even a legal infrastructure.
Right.
These are the tools that are needed so that we can protect everybody in the process, and most importantly, have an infrastructure so that not only the public health department, but law enforcement of licensing, enforcement of regulatory processes for the product itself, like pesticide testing and testing of the product to make sure that it actually doesn't have carcinogens in the product that will hurt the medicinal public. So there is a lot of infrastructure that's needed so that we could properly provide a public health and safety environment. And those are the processes that we felt that for this infrastructure to go national and for there to be that comfort level, we need a good regulatory process to give everybody, including the consumer, that comfort level that we know the product isn't going to hurt anybody.
And again, if you're just joining us, we are with CEO of Americanex. His name is Steve Janjic, and we're talking about marijuana in America and making it more on the books, a little less behind doors, and open those doors for everybody to see. Regulatory agencies, law enforcement, politicians to finally address this is something that needs to be taken care of one way or the other. And I'm really glad that we're talking about pesticides. And when you're dealing with a black market substance of any degree, you're always at the mercy, if you will, of those who are producing it. And with a less regulated industry, you're really rolling the dice with what you purchase. In your opinion, at what point are people going to, and I'm including politicians in this, realize that it is a public health and safety issue for the good of mankind here in America?
Well, I really hope they're doing a lot more research than they did with the opiate industry and the opiate problem that's been caused throughout not only throughout our country, but throughout the world. So if we look at the opiate problem and the issues with what created this problem and the inability to track the individuals who are purchasing the product and reselling it, that's where we started. And let me give you an example. If you look at the state of Florida, you could go from one individual physician to another, and that's why they called them pill mills down here.
Right.
And you could fill that script all day long because there was no system that internally checked that individual to say he met his full script for the day, for the week, for the month. And that created a huge opiate problem along with the individual physicians who are prescribing these drugs because they consistently want people to come back in the door. You have to understand that doctors' offices are businesses.
Yep.
Doctors' offices are there to make sure that whomever comes in the door, that they get not only the proper help, but hopefully it's a client that keeps coming back. They always want return customers. So a person with high blood pressure, a person with diabetes is a client that comes back every 30 days. So is an opiate addict.
Yes.
Who consistently comes back through the door. So I don't see where the medical community has all helped with this process, but they've seen it as an opportunity to help enrich themselves. And we see that day in and day out. Now, one thing we have seen, studies done from 1999 to 2017, and this is reported in JAMA, in the Journal of American Medicine, in states that have medicinal cannabis, the numbers of opiate death, of opiate addiction drops by 25%, my friend. That is a number that our lawmakers or doctors should be looking at on a daily basis to make sure that we have a product that could help with the opiate industry and the billions of dollars that are being spent now to help treat these people in the medical community. When we have a product that's a natural product that can help these people consistently, and these are studies that have been done by the largest medical associations in the world, these are the statistics that the public needs to have access to, the public needs to understand, and the fear-mongering of cannabis needs to go away.
Before we wrap it up, I want to ask you one last question. When do you think the benefits of legalizing, regulating, and taxing will overshadow the money gained from court costs and drug arrests?
If you think of the cost savings on top of this already being probably $100 billion industry globally, the numbers are there. The statistics are there. Now it's a matter of educating our legislators so that they have access to not only the legal numbers, that we see in cannabis because I think those are false. Let's look at the number as a whole. Let's look at the industry as a whole. Let's look at just the United States, the amount of cannabis that's being produced here, sold legally and illegally. This is already a $50 to $70 to $100 billion industry, and frankly, the only loser is the American public. We don't get to use it as a medicine. We don't have access to the tax dollars that should be associated with it, and all we're doing is helping the black market flourish, and we're allowing for the illegal cannabis market to flourish with billions of dollars when we as a society could use this to help grow America. You could imagine the amount of the workforce that could be entered into this space, the amount of people that are able to get jobs and good-paying jobs. You know, in Denver, Colorado, they get $20 to $25 for unskilled labor to trim cannabis. Do you know what this could do for our inner-city youth? I mean, God knows what we're missing out on here. It's unbelievable that the U.S. government isn't putting this at the forefront. And frankly, that's why we're here to help structure a proper environment for growth and success of this industry.
Fantastic conversation with CEO of AmeriConnect, Steve Janjic. What's the best way people can reach out and connect with you and your company?
Take a look at our website. It's www.amercanex.com. That's amercanex.com. And we just opened up in Canada as well, so we are international.
Always great to have you here in Wens World. We got to have you back as this storyline continues into the future, further into the Trump administration, and as time passes, how different states view this differently. Steve Janjic, CEO of AmeriConnect, thank you so much for your time, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure.
Drums, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Out of Control Atlanta Traffic Watch.
Folks, we are limited here in studio. Today we came in. I think we were robbed. I'm not sure. Chris is actually holding his microphone now.
Every time I come in this place, it's some other disaster that has happened in this studio. What's going on in here?
Much like the Atlanta roadways, disaster after disaster.
Right? Every time I walk in to the studio, the traffic center in the mornings, and I power up everything, and already there's something overturned, steaming, melting down. We had the big water main break in Sandy Springs this week.
Oh,
Did you hear about that? Roswell Road got all messed up there up around Northridge, but thankfully they were able to repair that. Not as difficult to repair. It's an elevated stretch of an expressway that catches fire and collapses on itself. So,
what do we have to look forward to this weekend on the Atlanta roadways?
Well, weather permitting, and it looks like weather's going to be okay now with the stuff moving out. They're going to be doing a lot of that repaving in conjunction with the 85 rebuild. We're talking about that area of 85 that approaches the closure scene. So anywhere, if you're coming inbound and you normally head down below Druid Hills, where all that traffic is forced off at 86 for the Buford Spring Connector, they're going to be paving that. And, well, that was actually pretty smart on GDOT's part to, hey, while it's closed, why don't we go ahead and pave it? But it is going to cause some extra delays, I think, there, as well as outbound from Brookwood back up to the Buford Spring Connector. So really, folks, best to avoid that if you can. And really the big thing that you have to watch out for all weekend is 285. Have you seen 285? Folks have been using that to get around the 85 closure. I mean, it's just 24 hours a day. It is jam-packed.
It does seem that 285 as of late has been the problem child of the Atlanta area.
Well, it was bad already, but then you take 200,000 cars and send them on to 285, the, quote, Atlanta bypass, which is why it was built, but it's not really that anymore. Now it's being used for what people use it for every day, which is a usual thoroughfare, and now it's being used as a bypass, too. So really, anywhere north of I-20, inner and outer loop, jammed. Smyrna, Sandy Springs, Dunwoody, Decatur.
Right.
Both ways.
The advice here is to sit tight, listen to good music or Wens World Radio on demand on SoundCloud. Of course, get the very latest of all things traffic from the voice of Atlanta traffic himself, Mr. Chris Monroe.
That's what we do.
And you could follow the man on Twitter. He's tweeting in his sleep at Atlanta Traffic, correct?
At Atlanta Traffic, yeah.
Couldn't do it without you. Atlanta couldn't do it without you. Folks, Mr. Chris Monroe.
Thank you, brother.
Don't go anywhere. Weird Science is just around the bend.
Hey, it's your friendly voice of Atlanta Traffic, Chris Monroe, on Twitter at Atlanta Traffic. And check out the work I'm doing with my foundation, the Gift of Music Foundation. giftofmusic.org. That's giftofmusic.org.
I'm Dana Barrett from The Dana Barrett Show on Biz 1190 and AM 920. But right now, I'm in When's World, and I'm loving it.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Carr from Reasons to Believe, and I'm losing my head over When's World.
This is When's World, and it's Weird Science time.
Why, thank you, Miss Carr from Reasons to Believe. Connect with them online, reasons.org. And, of course, we have the good doctor himself, Dr. Fazal Rana, back in When's World. Dr. Fuzz, how are you?
Joey, I'm doing great. How are you?
We're doing fantastic here. You know, our good friend Anastasia sent this amazing press release. I've never seen anything like it. And this is truly weird science because apparently just in time for Christmas comes the very first human head transplant. Fill us in on the deets, Dr. Fuzz.
Well, you know, if it brings to mind Frankenstein, and we were chatting a little bit off air, of all the weird science things we've talked about, this is really one of the weirdest.
Yes.
Because there are two surgeons, one from Italy, one from China, Sergio Canavero and Zhaoping Ren, who think in December they are going to be able to pull off the first human head transplant, where they're going to take the head from somebody who is a quadriplegic and transplant that head onto a donor body and give this patient a new lease on life. These scientists seem to be pretty convinced that they are going to be able to pull this off.
This started back in 1970 when a surgeon named Robert White transplanted the head from one monkey onto the body of another. And then recently, as recent as last November, the Chinese researchers that you mentioned exchanged the heads of 18 mice. We all know that sometimes what happens in the animal kingdom doesn't always transfer to mankind. In your heart of hearts, do you think this is actually possible, or is this somewhat of a pipe dream?
Well, I think it is possible because in all of those experiments, even as far back as 1970, they were able to successfully connect the blood vessels so that the brain would receive blood after the transplant. And the monkeys in both instances were able to actually display awareness of their environment, showing limited, if any, brain damage. The mice were able to wiggle their whiskers and their noses, but they were all paralyzed because in none of these procedures did they actually connect spinal cord to the head. So that's going to be the trick in this human head transplant, is they want to connect the spinal cord. But people have been doing research over the years, and they think they found the magic ingredient, the secret ingredient, which is polyethylene glycol, which kind of forms a glue-like material that helps the neurons to reconnect with one another. They're going to join up the spinal cord. So they think they're going to be able to actually pull this off. And they even published a fairly detailed surgical protocol for what they're going to do with this surgery. And it's interesting, they're going to have two teams of surgeons that will remove the head of the donor and the recipient at the same time. But it's really critical that they cool down the brain of the person who's going to have their head transferred to a new body. This is to prevent brain damage when blood flow is blocked or no longer going to the brain. And so they're going to very quickly have to join up the spinal cord with the head and then attach the blood vessels so they can get blood flowing to the head. They'll then warm the head up to prevent brain damage, and then they'll have surgeons going in there attaching muscles in the trachea and the skin. But they've got to leave the patient in a coma for 3 to 4 weeks, a medically induced coma, before they bring them out, to give time for the spinal cord from the donor and the recipient to fuse. But they think they're going to be able to pull this off. And it looks like they've really thought this through and worked this through in quite a bit of detail. So I think there's some real prospects this could be successful.
Well, you were talking about the amount of time it takes. They're looking at exactly 60 minutes as they simultaneously remove the head and reattach it to the new body. Is that correct?
That's right. They don't have a lot of time to play around, so they've got to have everything working fast. But that's why, again, they're looking at having two teams working simultaneously. They're going to use these high-precision scalpels that will do very, very clean cuts, which is critical to the procedure. They've been practicing not only on monkeys, but on human cadavers. So I think they think they can pull this off.
So you're talking about this substance, this chemical, the polyethylene glycol, or PEG for short. Where else can we see this in society nowadays?
Well, I mean, it's found in a lot of different places. In fact, I used to do research and development for a Fortune 500 company before I joined Reasons to Believe.
Wow.
And we actually were exploring the use of polyethylene glycol in cosmetics as a moisturizing agent, and it would moisturize the skin like nothing out there on the market. And it's known to be what's called a fusogen. It helps cells to fuse with one another, and people are using it in that capacity. So these are some of the reasons why people are exploring using this to help the spinal cords kind of glue together, because of the applications that it already is being used for, and it's safe. It's a safe material. So, you know, it's really a clever trick, I think, and on the part of the scientists to use this as, again, this agent to help kind of glue the spinal cords together.
Now, when we're talking about this kind of experiment, there are definitely moral implications. One of the articles I read about this was how long until we're putting human heads on robots, right, and kind of playing God in some ways. Go over some of the moral implications and how this could affect mankind as a whole.
Yeah, well, you know, I think on one hand, this is just an extension of what we're already doing with organ transplant procedures. We don't think twice about a heart and a lung transplant, a liver or kidney transplant. So why not transplant a body, particularly if you can really change the lives of people who are quadriplegic? So I think there's really good that can come from this. But with every kind of medical procedure and other biotechnology, it can be used for nefarious purposes. And, you know, to me, where I'm really concerned is this whole idea of cryonics, where people, after they die, have their head removed from their body and their head's frozen in liquid nitrogen, with the idea that they can thaw out their head at some point in the future and reattach it to a body or to a machine. And I think this kind of medical advance really makes the appeal of cryonics greater, but I think cryonics is a load of junk, because, you know, the idea of freezing a head for that long of time at those cold temperatures is going to cause so much tissue damage. You're never going to be able to thaw it out and it be a functioning head. But I think the success of this procedure could actually motivate people to get duped into cryonics.
We're talking about this taking place overseas in Russia, but what are the odds that this happens anytime soon in America, just because of the ethical dilemma that this causes? Yeah, well, I mean, the researchers are going to countries that have less stringent regulatory requirements, but I think if they can demonstrate success, it won't be short order before it actually is something that's available in the United States. And it very well could be that the first few surgeries don't go well, right, but we're going to learn a lot in the process of doing it. And so people like this Russian computer scientist that's volunteering to do this procedure is really a hero, because he's willing to sacrifice himself for the cause of medicine. And it's going to take heroes like that to get the procedure to work. But I think once it does work, it could really be transformative. So my first reaction when I heard this was really, this was bizarre and icky to me, because cutting heads off, you know, and moving them from one body to the other, you know, it does have a science fiction quality to it. But the more I think about it, the more I'm actually in favor of the science behind this and pursuing this as a medical option. Yeah, all right, so go over the evolution in this thought process, that you started kind of skeptical and now you're somewhat of a believer of this process. Well, it was looking at the science behind it and realizing that these guys didn't just roll out of bed and decide they were going to do this. They really did their homework and the lab work to show how to do the technique and how and to develop the protocols to test it out on animals and on cadavers. So the science behind it seems to be really sound. And when you realize who this could actually benefit, it really is a compassionate thing, I think, to encourage this kind of research. But again, there are boundaries or limits to how this research should be applied, but it can do so much good that as long as we're vigilant and can protect the misuse of this technology, I think
there's no reason not to go ahead with it.
Now, let's explore the dark side here. You talked about the good deeds that could be done with this process. Now, let's get into the shady dealings that this kind of thing could cause.
Well, as I was, mentioning, this idea of cryonics to me is something that I think is really a false promise for people who are trying to attain eternal life through science. And so I think there's a real opportunity for companies to exploit the fact that this procedure exists to try to drum up more business. And by the way, if you're an older person and you die, there's aging that happens to your brain that even if you could freeze your head and rethought, you still are going to have the problem of the fact that your brain is still aged. And so it's not going to necessarily help you to have a younger body with an aged brain. It in and of itself create problems. But I think that's really, in my mind, where the biggest immediate misuse of the technology could be. And, of course, you get into some kind of sticky issues over should we just simply donate one body to a person who's a quadriplegic to help improve the quality of their life, or could we take the heart and the lungs and the liver and the kidney and benefit 4 or 5 people, with that body? Those are kind of some ethical issues that have to be sorted out. In my mind, those are things that are manageable.
Dr. Fazal Rana, VP of Research and Apologetics at Reasons to Believe, reasons.org, author of several books, including Who Was Adam?, Creating Life in the Lab, The Cell's Design, and Dinosaur Blood and the Age of the Earth. People connect with this man on Twitter. He's a genius and scholar and a gentleman at RTB_FRANA. Dr. Fuzz, always great to have you in When's World. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me, Joey.
It's about that time of the show where we put on our spandex and grease up with baby oil because the male soap opera moment returns to When's World.
Hi, this is Vinny Bucci, a.k.a. The Booch of the Male Soap Opera Moment. Make sure you check out the Boochcast Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. on Blog Talk Radio. Also, like the show on Facebook, where you can find archived episodes. I'm in When's World, and I love it.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Wrestling is so not fake, Joey.
Oh, it's true. It's damn true.
This is your Male Soap Opera Moment.
Always great to have Rags to Riches Raggie and Vincent J. Bucci in When's World here. Welcome back to the show, ladies and gents. How are you? And, of course, the belle of life.
I don't even have any headphones, and I'm holding my microphone. What kind of bootleg mess is this?
We got robbed.
Darn you, Rick and Dan.
Let's get back to the business here of WWE Payback. Took place last weekend on Sunday, and we want to start with the matches that Rags to Riches Raggie actually saw. So go ahead, take it away. Let's start with the Strowman Roman Reigns match. What'd you think about this one, Chamso?
Complete flop. I didn't like it.
Why?
I thought Roman Reigns should have won, and I just didn't like the way it ended. It was just too much. Like, Roman's bleeding. He's all bandaged up. It's just too much. It was the worst. And I didn't think it should have been the last match.
What do you think should have been the last match?
The Divas title.
Okay. What was the other match that you saw?
I don't know. Seth Rollins. I'm sorry. I was asleep, and I can't stay up.
I think she's referring to Seth Rollins and Samoa Joe.
Right.
Probably, yeah. Sorry, I haven't had lunch. Blood sugar's a little low.
Okay.
But I did think that match was a really good match.
Nice. What did you like most about the Rollins match?
Know. It was good.
It was good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you not look at me like I'm like an idiot?
No, I didn't. I didn't
see his face.
I'm just looking at you.
Kind of like, why are you here?
You're in When's World. I'm just making eye contact with you.
Sure wins.
So Vinny, what did you think about those two matches that Sam so eloquently enlightened us on?
Okay.
Why does he have headphones and I don't?
Well, I don't know, because I'm here every week.
Mic dropped. I'm not going to drop him sitting on the counter.
Rags to Riches has left When's World. You can follow her on Twitter as she walks away at Shamso84. Bye, Shamso.
No, I feel bad. I think I may have really hurt her feelings on that one.
Oh, well, she'll get over it.
But anyway, Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns, I thought this match was fantastic. I thought it was great. I love the fact that they played up Roman's injuries. I thought that was awesome. Having him out there bandaged up, the announcers playing off the fact that he has internal injuries, that he has a separated shoulder. That way, when Braun Strowman inevitably won the match, like he should, it doesn't take anything away from Roman, and it doesn't hurt his momentum, which is the thing that I was the most concerned with when I found out this was not going to be a gimmick match. It was going to be a straight up fight. So
right.
To have him sell that injury, and then afterwards, Braun put the extra damage on him, and then, have him walking out. He's bleeding from the mouth, which is insane. Then you got on Raw Talk, Braun going through the ambulance door, Roman slamming the other door onto him, getting Braun to at least go away. So now you got both guys hurt, but Roman taking the brunt of it all still keeps Braun over. So they found a way to pull this match off while making Braun look good and Roman not looking. They found a way to put both guys over in a match, which is not easy to do.
And I was looking at this match with a very scrupulous eye on Roman Reigns, and he sold the arm and rib injuries throughout the match. He never forgot, but he was somehow able to do certain things, and that spear in the center of the ring was one that dropped the jaw of all in attendance there at WWE Payback. He really earned more respect from the Wens here throughout this match. And as you mentioned, the ambulance portion taking place on Raw Talk, right?
Yes.
That was one of the things that at Vince Bucci on Twitter talked about in previous episodes here of the Male Soap Opera Moment about how they needed to incorporate an ambulance into this match. Mm-hmm. And they did it, perhaps not part of the actual scene, but it happened, which I'm very thankful for.
Yes, me too. And I especially since, like I said, it's got both guys kind of on the injured list right now.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, Braun just has the rotator cuff. Samoa Joe has, Roman Reigns, has everything else. So it looks like, Braun Strowman might come back sooner than Roman.
Yeah.
And with Roman selling the injury off camera, it allows him not to get, as Wednesday said on the show before, he's not shoved down people's throats because he's out of action.
Yeah.
I think when he eventually does come back, I'm hoping, and this is a big hope, maybe the boos won't be as intense.
Yeah, less is more with Roman Reigns, in my opinion. And of course, the other match that Rags to Riches Raggie mentioned was Samoa Joe versus Seth Rollins. In my mind, watching this match, it was almost like they held back just a little bit for the feud to continue between these two. But, all in all, it was a really good match. It helped propel the storyline. We saw 2 suicide dives by Seth Rollins, the Architect, and a reversal of the Coquina Clutch into a pinfall. What did you like most about this match, and what did you like least?
I have to say, the highlight of the match for me was definitely, I think I would have to, if I really thought about it, when Rollins hit that Falcon Arrow on Samoa Joe.
Yeah, how did he hit that, man?
That was amazing.
Samoa is like, what, over 300 easily, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't look like, just from watching it, it didn't look like Rollins got a whole lot of help from Samoa Joe on that move.
Yeah, so a lot of that looked like he deadlifted Joe right into the air and dropped him. He was working off pure adrenaline, I think is what happened. And I'd have to say that my least favorite, if I had to pick a least favorite, was probably the fact that it ended the way it did, like the roll-up pin thing. But then after what we saw on Raw, which I know we're going to get into later, it made sense because they want to prolong the feud. Right. So I understood why they did it. It just felt anticlimactic to me, especially when it looked blatantly obvious that one of Joe's shoulders was clearly off the mat, yet the ref is still counting to 3. So it would have helped if the announcers had brought that up, but they didn't.
Yeah, they wanted to make sure people overlook that.
Yeah. Which is hard to do when the camera's right there. And the referee is clearly making the count. It's like you could tell that shoulder was not supposed to be up, and the referee didn't want to call an audible or something like that. It was because he just wanted to, go home and the match, not mess anything up.
Well, one thing that I haven't seen, and maybe I've missed it, is people reversing the Coquina Clutch into anything other than being defeated. So I think this was a step in the right direction because, as we've seen as of late, Sami Zayn has been a victim time and time again of the Coquina Clutch, amongst others. So it was good to see the Architect himself redesign, rebuild, and reclaim glory at a WWE pay-per-view.
Absolutely. And especially since, I knew Rollins was going to win because he beat Triple H at WrestleMania.
Yeah, there's no way you can fall off.
There's no way he's losing this. Now, if there is a rematch down the road, I could see Rollins potentially losing that if they want to keep the feud going. But if they're gonna, but this is like a one more match and done, then Rollins might win again.
Well, we're going to get to the House of Horrors match in our on-demand edition, but while we have time here, let's be equal opportunity here. Let's talk about the women's match for the Raw Women's Championship, which saw Little Miss Bliss take on the hugger herself, Bayley. What'd you think about this match, Booch?
I thought this match was... I felt the match could have been better. It just didn't really catch my interest too much, I feel like. Obviously, like, I felt like these women were, like, trying to match each other move for move and not really telling a story is how I felt. But other than that, I was shocked to see Alexa Bliss win, but even more shocked she's using the DDT as a finisher now, which I kind of think is odd. I kind of miss the top rope. Like, it was called the Sparkle Splash at one point. I forget what she called it when she turned heel, but that move right there I love that as a finisher. Like, to have a DDT is just too anticlimactic.
I think the DDT was good for that spot, given the fact that Bayley's head got rammed into the ring post. And I think that they were using that because there was some slowness after it actually struck, and the referee kind of went over and was probably like, okay, for real, are you okay? And it slowed it down for a good 10-15 seconds. So I think they were going to use that head injury and use the DDT as a way to finish the match appropriately. One of the things about that match that I really loved was that sunset flip power bomb. And this match by Bayley was one of her best, in my opinion. There wasn't a lot of slowness other than after she got her head, clocked in by the ring post. And as you said, it was a lot of play for play, move for move. But these two really put it on the line. And Little Miss Bliss, again, one of my favorites for a reason.
Yes. She definitely earned the championship here. And then, of course, you find out later that Alexa Bliss now is in the history books.
Yep.
Because she's held both the SmackDown and the Raw Women's Championships.
The first woman to do so.
First woman to do so.
Yep.
You would have thought it. Some people thought it was going to be Charlotte, and it turns out it's Alexa Bliss.
Oh, boy. We're going to talk more about all of these things, everything Payback, as well as Monday Night Raw, SmackDown Live on the on-demand version of the male soap opera moment on SoundCloud, free app in your app store, up in the search bar, WENZ World. Till next week, have a nice day.
Bang, bang.
Hey, y'all, this is your Southern sister, Jenny Earhart, with the Southern Sisters Radio Show. I would love to connect with you on Facebook. Check us out at Southern Sisters with Jenny Earhart and online at southernsistershome.com. I'm in Wens World, and I love it.
This is Larry WACHS of the world-famous WACHS Modcast, Atlanta's #1 smartphone radio show on iTunes and Google Play. But that's nothing compared to Wens World.
Today is a little weird for me because I left my phone at home, and everything I do surrounds my phone. Texting, email,
I know,
Facebook, Twitter.
That happens to a lot of people.
And I feel like that show, Naked and Afraid, right now. I feel like I'm going to get bit by something. Oh, yeah, it is.
I thought that never aired for some reason.
No, they have a different one. It's called Naked and Afraid.
Do you watch Naked and Afraid?
I do.
What do you like about Naked and Afraid besides the nudity?
Well, there's really no nudity because they put that little censor thing over their body parts. But
yeah, but why do you watch that instead of like the half a dozen other Survivor-style shows?
Well, because on this show, it seems like it would be more difficult to navigate a swamp or a forest or something completely naked, rather than those other shows.
So you're looking for people to bleed?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
Like it was for our ancestors before they realized that it's better to wear clothes.
You want to see the hyper paleo lifestyle?
Yes.
And see what that's like. See how far you should go in your diet. Like if I saw them and they're completely naked and they're eating meat and vegetables, like paleo people, cave people out there, I'd say to myself, all right, I'm going to back off the nuts, have a little more bread, because that's too stressful for me. I would just start to eat more bread.
Well, it's more spiders and small insects that these people are digesting.
Don't they have a new Survivor-style show? It's kind of like a reverse mortgage. I saw a promo for like a reverse mortgage Survivor. In other words, everybody on the island gets $100,000, some, and they have to use that to trade in, like at the, I guess the producers have their own setup where they
commissary or something.
Yeah, they have a canteen. If you want to purchase some survival item, it costs you X number of dollars, and so they have to budget. It's like Survivor meets accounting.
Right?
Accounting Survivor.
So it's like six figures. Is that what they get?
I forget whether it was $1 million or 100,000. But of course, it's $1 million. A bucket of water will cost you, maybe $3,000.
Oh, it's worth it.
That's what they got to decide, if it's worth it or not.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes you think, well, I can fish. I don't need to buy fish. I can make a spear. I don't need to buy a spear.
Right.
Depends what skills you have and how you... I think it's a more interesting version of Survivor, maybe.
So how much would a PlayStation cost, do you think? Something to keep you occupied?
I don't know specifically, but I think it would even out the... Survivor has race wars, right? They have blacks versus whites all the time. I mean, it's just that's what people want to see. Yeah. And these producers of Survivor cynically exploit that desire to watch people... I mean, both races want to watch fights with both races.
Sure,
it's just the way
fun.
it is.
Yeah.
It's not fun, but people are attracted to that as television fodder. We just dress it up in something politically correct, but it's really at root, people are tuning in, and on Naked and Afraid, on all these shows, to see the races go at it against each other. And invariably, there's always some race war. John Rocker was on there. Why do you think they have John Rocker on Survivor, ever? So they can foment the race war for television viewing fun.
Although I will say I've never seen a brother or sister on Naked and Afraid.
Well, they have big
it would
giant.
The censor thing would have to go all the way to the floor.
Right. I think when they're naked, they're unafraid. That's my take on it, Black people. When they're naked, black people are unafraid. I've noticed that. White people are always afraid to be naked. Black people are never afraid to be naked.
What do you think it's just the genetic thing, or?
It's cultural. It's never genetic. That's what's the idiotic thing about the race war. Everybody's trying to yell at each other to change their color. It's never going to happen. You got to yell at people to change your culture, your behavior. Pull your pants up. You're not afraid to be naked. That's a problem in society. You should have some shame, some modesty, some decency. That's the way society properly runs.
Yeah, fig leaves and such.
Put on clothes. Put on a tux once in a while. It couldn't hurt you. Even if it's the McDonald's. Try it once in a while. See how you feel. Maybe you'll feel like that guy in the Monopoly game at McDonald's wears it. You want to be like him? Start wearing the tux instead of buying the burgers to get the little scratch-offs. It's not going to win. You're not going to win that way. You got to look at Mr. McBigbucks there. What he's wearing. He's wearing a monocle. He's well dressed. I mean, he's dapper. He's Great Gatsby looking.
Yeah, if you want to move from
success.
Baltic and Mediterranean up to Park Place and Boardwalk, you got to make some sacrifices.
That's the lesson from the McDonald's Monopoly game.
Never won anything on that.
Right, because you're not dressing in a tuxedo to go to McDonald's like that guy is. If you just dress in a tuxedo to go to McDonald's, you just get that. You'd be right on the first step to the road to culture confidence. Success.
This is Dennis Prager, and I am in When's World, and I love it.
Folks, summertime is right around the corner, which means the kids are going to be at home more than we thought, and sometimes more than we want. But that's beside the point. I have author Denise Lorenz on the line. Welcome to When's World, Denise. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'm doing well.
I remember when I was a kid that the last thing I wanted to do was read or study. But you're providing kids with an outlet that will increase information retention, which is lost drastically during the summertime, in a very fun way for kids of all ages. Go into a little bit about what you do.
Well, I put together word search, word scrambles, and now crossword puzzles, and I do them in books that are related to a theme. I am a big believer in if it's something we enjoy, we can learn and not realize we're learning. We don't realize it's good for us. We just think we're having fun.
Right.
And so I expand on a lot of different topics, trying to catch a lot of different interests. I have the classic kids movies, all the favorites of the kids movies. I have a lot of sports. I have animals. I have states. I have a lot of different topics. Actually, I have a new book coming out within a few days on fishing. I have one on woodworking that's probably geared more to the older generation, but possibly some younger. Just a lot of different topics. Each book is centered around that topic.
And you are pretty eclectic. I'm seeing stuff about states, baseball teams, players from Ohio from 1940 to 2014, the best pie recipes. It looks like you're all over the map, which is really cool because as you mentioned, kids don't really want to realize they're learning because to a lot of young kids, learning isn't cool unless it's fun.
Right.
And you're making it fun. I mean, I live in Atlanta, so I see an Atlanta Braves word search puzzle and crossword puzzle, and it's very affordable. It's only $1, and it's a download, which means you don't have to wait long to play.
Right. And I have that for every team, any team that somebody is a fan of, they can download for their team. And it's a word search puzzle and a crossword puzzle about the team rosters. And then there's the answers are provided also. So there's at least 4 pages in the download, one for each puzzle and then one for each answer key. Because team rosters, they will change through the year, let alone from year to year.
Right.
So I didn't want to put them in a book and have the book outdated in a year. But I thought if I do the separate downloads, they can focus on their favorite team and it's up to date, and then I can update it next year and make it up to date for next year very quickly. And that way it'll stay somewhat accurate.
Right. Well, in professional sports, it's such a business nowadays. Players go from team to team. But one thing that does remain somewhat steady are the ballpark. And you have 2 books, one for each league in Major League Baseball. Ballpark Facts for Fun for the American League and Ballpark Facts for Fun for the National League. I think that's super cool.
It's a trivia type book. There's one ballpark that has it's either orange or yellow foul poles. It's different from every other ballpark.
Huh.
And then it's a multiple choice which ballpark has it. And there's a picture on the answer page. There's a picture of the ballpark. It's a fun trivia book, but it's problem solving and it's fun facts that, did you know? Like there's one on the states and which state has the most of the mainland 48 states, which one has the most coastline?
Yeah, I would
Very
guess
surprising
California,
answer.
right? I mean, everybody would probably guess California.
California or Florida, and it's actually Maine.
How about that?
Because of the way the Maine coastline is. If you go straight, it's not that long. But if you follow all the inlets and everything, Maine has the most coastline of any state besides Alaska.
And you know what? That's the kind of question that would be perfect for a long car trip. Because I remember when I was a kid, we used to go on these long car trips. My parents had a Ford Taurus, and there was 5 of us. We rolled 5 deep.
Boy.
Our suspension and brakes were getting torn up, and we had a dog in the back seat. But we got bored, right? And when kids get bored, that's when the trouble starts. He hit me. No, I didn't. He hit me. No, I didn't. But this is
you
cool.
breathed on me.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can have these books, and so everybody can get involved. And next thing you know, 10 hours have gone, and nobody's been strangled to death, and you're at your destination. And everybody's had a good time, and there's been learning going on. So it kills a lot of birds with one stone, so to speak.
Right. And it's a lot of fun. It's just, I've tried to pull out fun facts. I have some about the presidents, the first 33 presidents, but there's just fun facts about it. It's not political. It's just fun history facts that I've dug up just these fun trivial facts, and you learn about the presidents. And in doing that, American history can be a little lacking in the educational system, but kids don't even know who the presidents were. And this goes back to learning that, and then something fun about them to know about them.
So I got to know, so you go by a pen name, right? So people don't be shocked when, I mentioned your name was Denise Lorenz, but you go by a different name. Why do you do that?
Well, I've tried to divide my pen names up by the genre. Like my word search books are all Emily Jacobs.
Right.
My trivia fun fact books are Wyatt Michaels. I have a couple different kinds of cookbooks. I have a couple different pen names there. So the pen names are according to the genre, but I'm the author of all of them.
And all these books can be found on your website, booksworthbuying.top. Again, booksworthbuying.top. And if you're the social media type, just like me and Denise here, you can find her on Instagram at WordSearcher, and everybody's on Facebook. And all you have to do is type in word searches, and it'll bring you to at word searches and more. Of course, like the page and follow her on both of those social media platforms. So what made you get into creating these fun fact books and word searches in particular?
Because I have a lot of different interests myself, and I homeschooled our 5 children who have now all graduated. And so I got firsthand experience with trying to figure out how to educate these kids without a fight. Right. And I found that if you make it fun, and my life philosophy is my kids need to learn to love to learn. Because the things I learned in high school are so outdated they're useless. And it's going to be the same even quicker for this generation. But if they learn to love to learn, they're set. Because life is learning. Life is continual learning to stay updated and current with everything that's going on. I wanted to instill learning that was fun, that kids would love to do. And so they would learn to love to learn. And and my interests are all over the map, and so I've gone along with that. I'm not that interested in fishing, but it was a topic that my husband suggested, and I checked into it, and I'm getting it done. And he suggested cars, and I learned a lot about cars when I put my cars books together. So I love to learn. I'm very inquisitive by nature, and sorting and searching out these facts and putting it into a fun. It's probably geared to fifth graders and up.
Right.
Through adulthood, these books can be enjoyed by adults. They can be enjoyed by 10-year-olds, by 12-year-olds, and all the way up. Just whatever topic interests you, I probably have a book on it. Or if I don't, send me a message, and I'll probably do one. Because I love to learn, and I love putting things together to help people love to learn.
And it's fantastic. Your site is so user-friendly. I actually just threw a Philadelphia Phillies word search and crossword puzzle into my cart, and it's completely secure. You can purchase these immediately for the download for $1. I mean, you can't even go to the thrift store, spend $1 on an updated, this year, 2017 Major League Baseball roster. And I think this is such a fantastic thing for not only the kids, but parents, something to share with their kids that doesn't revolve around a smartphone, a tablet, or a television.
Right, and there's word skills involved that they don't even know. There's problem solving, there's word skills, there's fact learning. It's a fun discussion, because I will throw out something that I've learned sometimes just around friends. Hey, did you know? And it's like, how did you know that? It's like, oh, I wrote a book.
Yeah.
And so it's just fun. It's fun to throw things out there that aren't out there as the major news, but they're fun to know, fun to learn about.
Absolutely. Well, you can find her online. Again, booksworthbuying.top. Connect on social media, on Instagram @WordSearcher. And if you type in word searches up in the Facebook search bar, it'll bring you directly to her Facebook page. And you can see that basically there are 6 photos of books that she has written. She hasn't written just 6 books, folks, more like 600, with more to come. You mentioned one that you're working on right now. Will you talk about that one a little more?
Okay, this is about fishing, and it goes through the fishing gear, which I knew nothing about when I started. I know a little bit now. And there was also one puzzle about boat names, that I found just fascinating, people's creativity on naming their fishing boats.
Wow.
And then I do like different types of freshwater fish, saltwater fish, and places that are famous for fishing. If somebody wants to go on a fishing trip, they can learn. All 50 states are included. It's not one puzzle per state. There's about 3 or 4 states per puzzle. So there's way more places to go fishing than what I list. But some of the more popular, well-known places. And I've included things like the Angler of the Year winners for several years, and the Bassmaster Classic winners. And just different aspects of fishing, which was a little challenging to me because I didn't know much about it to start. And I really want my information to be accurate.
Yeah.
I really try to check my facts. It's challenging when I know less about the subject, but I still try to keep that accuracy there.
Well, this is just fantastic stuff. Again, we've been with Denise Lorenz, but she has about 6 or 7 or 8 pen names. So don't be thrown off when you head to booksworthbuying.top and see a bunch of different names. But you will see a huge variety of eclectic topics, titles, something for everybody and more. Again, at booksworthbuying.top. Denise, this has been a pleasure. I'm very excited about this because I have a little boy at home. He's 6 months, and we were talking a little bit before we started the interview, and already he's reaching for my smartphone. I guess it's the bright, shiny thing, but I really do want to bring it back old school because sometimes what's simple isn't always easy and vice versa, because it's easy to put him in his extra saucer, throw on Veggie Tales, and just do some dishes. But being involved in learning together and increasing his vocabulary will obviously help him in the long run as he moves further along, as he learns to recognize letters, sounds, shapes. And furthermore, when he gets older in school, he's going to be the kid that always has a conversation starter at the lunch table. And chicks dig conversation starters. I just got to say it.
For the younger kids, I have trivia books like letter sounds.
Yeah.
Or what do you want to be? Like different careers, different things, the fireman, the policeman. And then I have some off the beaten path type careers that aren't as well known maybe, and I have some picture books. I have some books for the younger children. But the word searches, books would be for 10 and up, but I do have books for younger children.
Author Denise Lorenz. I love your mantra, learn to love to learn. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
My friend, there's no better way to draw the customers in than advertising right here on Wenz World Radio. Email me, wenzworldradio@gmail.com. You can also direct message me on Twitter @Wenz World Radio.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.